a long time, I was scared to share my true color, to be who I truly was. I was hiding in the story I was reading, fearful of what people would think about me. But this ends now. I've stopped running. I decide to accept my diversity. Today, I will share our story of neurodiversity and mental health awareness. Welcome on the ADHD Melly Show. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. I'm so excited. Shara is here with me today, and I'm so excited to be talking with her very soon. We haven't talked yet before because she arrived just in time, so we'll make sure that everything's working fine before we having the conversation. Sometimes things like that happen. It's totally fine. But first of all, I created merch, okay? If you want a t-shirt, writing, with my handwriting on it, you can get it now. You just go on my Popple down and you will be able to get it. So today we're going to have an amazing conversation about college and how you can succeed despite being neurodivergent. I've been to college. I need to go back to get some course done because I failed some of them. I'm honest, okay? I did fail at courses. There's only one I need to do to succeed and have my diploma, but I have to do it. And I decided to take a time off last session because I was just like not in the right place and I needed to be more focused to be able to do that course. And I was a little bit sad at the same time of failing, but things like that happen. And yeah, and I'm so happy Carol is here. Thank you so much for being here, Carol. So let's introduce your guest, Shara.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm
Nice to
finding
finally
you.
meet you, Melly.
Me too.
Good,
Can
good,
you hear
good.
me right?
I can hear you just fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, I hear you
Amazing.
perfectly.
I'm so happy to meet you today. Oops, I prefer this way.
Oh, no,
so
you're fine.
So please introduce yourself and tell me a little bit what you're doing and etc.
No problem. So, hi everyone, including Miss Melly. I've been watching you for quite a while. So, my name is Shara. I am the founder and CEO of Journey to Licensure, which is a company that helps social workers pass their board exams at every level. And I also do professional development with social workers to help them establish careers in their field. And if they want to become a coach similar to myself, I help them do that. So, yeah, there's a little bit about me.
So what will you say to a student that is in high school right now and has not that such a great grades but still want to go to college
Yes.
because they have dreams, and their grades are okay but they're not as good as a neurotypical person even if they study so hard and they want to succeed in life? What would you say to them?
Wow, high school, that was so long ago. So, oh man, I have to put the different hat on, Melly. I had three children of my own now. So ranging from teenager age now to 7 years old, my youngest. So I have to kind of put that another hat on because college is so different for, I'm sure, for people that are in high school, kids that are in high school now. They have so much more opportunity, so much more they have to face. Technology is, definitely always changing. So I think there's some rules that do stay the same. I remember when I was in college, even before then, I knew I was going to go to college. It was my way out, just because I come from a community where we don't always have the opportunity to go to college. I was the first one in my family to go to college, so I didn't have an example of what that looked like in my immediate family. So I took a risk of going. But one of the things I would tell someone is to start thinking about college early on. Not Don't think about your senior year. You start thinking about it probably your sophomore and going into your junior year. I started preparing for college. I think I was my junior year, the summer before my senior year. I started looking at scholarship opportunities, looking at financial opportunities, going to using your high school counselor. I think those are still some of the old rules that still ring key. If you're a high schooler interested in going to college, start thinking about it early. It's okay to be thinking about it your freshman year, sophomore year. It's never too early to think about not think about college, is start thinking about it early. When it comes to going to college, those recommendations are going to be crucial. So the reason why I say it's important to think about it early on is because you want to get great recommendations. So start building those relationships with your professors. I always look at I said professor, high school teacher. I look at each of those relationships as unique because they can help mold you. You might have a good resource connecting with your high school teacher. That's something that I personally did, even my freshman year, as I started connecting with teachers early on to build those relationships so I can get those recommendations. Use your high school counselor. I know every school has one. They are your best resource for outsourced college resources. For me, it was my high school counselor, but I also had a college Upward Bound program that they connected me to more resources about how to prepare for college, what would look like financially for me to get to college, and what scholarships and resources that could kind of decrease my debt going into college. So I know I said a lot, but I had to kind of think back quite a bit of years that was for me, even though I'm very young. I'm only 36, but it was a while. High school was 2004 was my freshman year. So of college, so I kind of had to think back a little bit.
Totally fine. I'm 33, so for me too, it's a while back. To be
We're not that
honest,
far in age.
no, not at all. So, how was it with neurodivergent to begin at college because you are alone? You don't have a parent or a teacher telling you what to do. You need to do it by yourself. You need to be at certain rules of obligation. You need to bring your own work or your any work in time, stuff like that. How was time management and how did you deal with that? Because for me, it's very hard. And that's maybe
Hmm.
what made me to failure for my courses when I was in college myself that I have to do back. And I still have the time to do it back, hopefully. But what will be your suggestion for that?
So it's thinking back again, putting that other hat on. I think for me, Melly, what was most important was making sure that I found supports early on. Now, Melly, from following me on LinkedIn, but the audience may not know that I have ADHD, combined type. I have a learning disorder, and I have generalized anxiety disorder. Now, I wasn't diagnosed with those things until I hit 21, about a year before I graduated college. So the first 2 years of college academically was pretty hard because my brain had to compensate a lot for learning how to learn. So it was pretty interesting. So I will say, even though I did well in college, I graduated at top of my class. I was graduated with honors. Most people don't look at me as having any of those things. They think I was higher functioning, which I was, but I struggled when it came to writing papers. I struggled when it came to studying, finding out how to actually study for an exam. Memorization was pretty hard. I had a short-term memory, so I would have to study for hours. I would have to rewrite my professor notes from class to make sure I understood them, or put them in a way that was systemic for me to understand. So undiagnosed for most of my college career was pretty hard. Looking back, I had to, my brain had to compensate a lot for what I had to do without any medication. I didn't get medicated for my anxiety until 2 years ago, and my ADHD until 2 years ago. So, mind you, most of my life I've struggled with short-term memory. Now, when it came to college, one of the great things that helped me succeed was making sure that I connected with my professors. Some people would say teacher's pet or whatever, but when you form a relationship with your professor, they are more susceptible to helping you than the other student. Use those office hours. Very important. If you do feel that there's something else going on or you need more support, use your counseling center at your college. I didn't even get connected to my college center facility until my junior year of college when I started experiencing difficulties with passing a math class. So even though, Melly, you said that you struggled in college, I know for me and my experience, even though I was highly successful, it would have been without having those supports in place, having people to talk to. making sure I surrounded myself with a support, a community. Often it felt lonely. I was put into an honors program, which was pretty accelerated my first year, which was very scary because my high school was horrible at preparing me for accelerated classes. But what really, really helped me from what I can remember was my willingness to talk to my professors, to go to the writing center if I needed my papers rewritten ahead of time, time management, and just having friends in a support system. I had a lot of friends, even though I was more of an introvert. After my first, I would say first semester, because I was scared of failing, the second semester I started branching out and finding student communities to join. I was part of student government. I ended up being part of other organizations in my college to help me branch out, to become more social and for me to practice those skills that became very valuable for me when I left college. So again, I gave you a little bit of a mouthful, but I hope that helped the listeners.
I'm sure that it does. You know, you talk about being struggle with math. Exactly the courses that I failed was math, you know. And it's so
Mm.
hard because you have to learn by heart. And sometimes you study for so many time and you remember it, but when you're at your exam with anxiety, you forget everything. So how did you deal with that with
Mm.
no medication? I have no idea how you did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because for many years, and my mother has anxiety and is undiagnosed till this day. I became a therapist for many years. I think I went into mental health because the other part to tell the audience is that I was a therapist for many years before I became a coach for social workers. And I went into the field because I became a counselor and a therapist because I wanted to help other people deal with the stigma of mental health. But it was even still a struggle for myself. Again, I have only taken medication 2 years ago. And this is somebody that was a licensed mental health professional working with patients, telling them to take their medicine. But one of the things I do want to tell the audience before I do answer your question, Melly, is that it's important to know that therapists are human too. We're not, we don't have all the answers. Oftentimes we come into the field because we have experienced emotional suffering to a degree and can relate to the patients that we serve. So I do want to say that. But when it came to dealing with my own anxiety, I think it was driven by fear. My first semester, I was afraid of failing. And because I was surrounded by so many kids who had been in private school, I went to a very poor public school district. So my grades were great, but they didn't always reflect the academic curriculum in high school. It was pretty poor. When I went to my first semester in college, I did hit the dean's list, but it was out of fear of living in the library for hours. I didn't know a soul. I remember my cousin coming to visit me, and she's like, "Hey, a lot of the students say they don't know who you are." So scared of failing, I would spend hours in the library every day as if it was a job if I wasn't in class, reading ahead of time for the syllabus, making sure that I understood the classes, seeing my professor hours, and made sure I used the resources that were there. So the first semester, even though I did well inside, I was pretty much a anxiety driven engine. And I do want to say the one thing I learned is don't do that. If you know you're experiencing anxiety, don't let it be driven by fear. Go get the help that you need. I wish I would have listened then, and I didn't. It took me many years before I was able to face my own mental health stigma of taking medication, of seeking help. So will say that it wasn't easy, but I did find my way. But it was one of those things that I reached out with help with what I could. I mean, I was young. I was like 19, 20 years old. Just being on my own. Everything was pretty new to me. But it was reaching out for supports where I could find it. That was probably the most helpful.
So you said that you've been diagnosed late. So what I don't want you to clarify is how your parents did notice when you were in middle school or before being in high school. How your professor never said that you had difficulty with learning and stuff like that?
Mm-mm. So, and I also specialize in ADHD, so that's one of my specializations. So one of the 20 that I have. So what I will say, so I'm going to put this in kind of a cultural perspective for the audience too. So
Mm-hmm.
coming from an African American community where mental health isn't talked about, it's often a stigma. I was born to two teenage parents. So my parents are in their mid 50s now, which means when I was born, which was 1986, they didn't have the knowledge that, or the education to know what ADHD was, that it is a neurological brain disorder. And I didn't show the typical symptoms of ADHD. I was not hyperactive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, the impulsivity came a lot later on with my decision making and relationships that impacted later on socially, but it did not show up the typical hyperactivity that you would see in students that can't stay still. I was a
Mm-hmm.
pretty behaved kid. Stay to myself. Did what the teachers asked me to do. I never kind of ruffled any feathers. So I didn't show the typical symptoms of someone having ADHD as a kid. Typically, as an adult, it shows up more as inattention, lack of completing tasks. Usually, it has a comorbidity or related diagnosing of a learning disorder or anxiety, which I
Mm-hmm.
had both. The ADHD didn't get addressed or even looked at till 2 years ago. So let me explain to the audience what that whole thing was. So when I hit college, I had to take several math classes. I was a social work major. One of my professors said, Shara, you're not able to get past basic arithmetic. I think you need to go see a counselor. And I'm like, I'm an honor student. I don't need to see, someone. I don't think I have a learning disability. I said, well, I think there's something going on with math in this class several times. I don't want it to affect your GPA. So I decided, I said, fine. By my junior year, I kind of went to the counseling center, and I was diagnosed with GAD and a math learning disorder. That's what the learning disorder is. But they saw ADHD, but they didn't diagnose me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think because they said my anxiety was so high, so it didn't get rectified until I was 30. I'm 36, so about 33 when it came to me taking a licensing exam several years later. Um, my old neuropsychologist said that, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We should have diagnosed with the ADHD on top of everything else you had, because your memory is pretty bad and your
Mm-hmm.
inattention. And this would probably explain to your parents why you couldn't retain multiplication tables. Because I told them the story of when I was in the third grade, my mom said, hey, I don't understand why she can't learn multiplication tables. It took me almost 2 years to learn them. I was in the
Mm-hmm.
third grade, which probably would have been indicative of a precursor to early budding ADHD. But because my parents back then in the early 90s, they didn't know what it was. They were just doing the best they could with what they had. They did not know what ADHD was. And most parents don't, which I think is a diagnosis, unless they showed a hyperactivity. It can be a missed um, diagnosis, which, preventatively would be helpful for kids that need the help, that they can get it early on. But I know for anyone out in the audience that's curious about ADHD, you definitely want to get diagnosed early. If you're not able to retain information, if you have trouble completing tasks, if your distractibility when it comes to studying, if you have impulsivity, those are things you want to look at, because it can literally keep you, as you well know, Melly, keep you from living a full life
Mm-hmm.
and getting the benefits of someone that doesn't have that disorder. And it's not something that you can change. It is a
Mm-hmm.
neurological brain disorder. And a lot of people, even my colleagues, struggle that have it. They're undiagnosed because they don't even know they have it. So it's definitely a diagnosis that a lot of people, I feel, don't know a lot about. Most people, when they think of ADHD, they may just think of just a hyperactivity part. So I know I said another mouthful. So
It's okay. You can say as much as you want. You're the guest, so talk as much as you want. You said that we are different background, but I do think that we're more close than you think, because my parents are teen parents as well. My mom was 19 when she was just 19 when she got me. So mental health was not something that we talked a lot, neither. The only reason, and for math, I think I probably have the same disorder in math than you, because I remember crying when I was doing math. It was, and I had anxiety for a young age, so I was hysterical. Okay, I was always hysterical. I had meltdown all the time at school, and this is maybe why they seek out, because they were like, they cannot do anything with me because I was not a good behaved child.
Mhm.
And I was always hyperactive and stuff like that. So this is the only reason that makes my diagnosis younger. But I got diagnosed, but nothing changed. I Even psychiatrists could understand me that as much, and they just like mad, let's go, we were going to fill that girl with meds and forget about it, and unfortunately that's not gonna work. And the proof is I graduate high school, but I cried my hell out for making math. Okay, I failed that math class 3 times before I got it, and the only reason why I got it is because I had a great teacher. And if she didn't exist, I don't remember her name, but hopefully she did exist. And I've been at an adult school just to finish high school because I dropped out because I couldn't do it. I dropped out and I got directly to the adult school. I just because I couldn't do it anymore. Our class was working, it was not for me, and yeah, and I was not medicated anymore because for me, medication was a punishment. They make it on me like punishment. You're not behaving, mad. You're not like that, mad. So that's really fucked up my brain with meds, and it caused me a lot of issues and scareness around that. So, what were your experience about meds? Were you scared when you heard about you need them? I don't hear you anymore.
Nope. Can you hear me now? I said if you see me like my hand moving, it's because my 7-year-old is like looking at me. He just woke up, so he's a little cranky. Um, so he's his name is Jaden. He actually on Melly. You may have seen him a couple times, probably in a couple of my videos with me on LinkedIn. But I will have to cut out a little early to take care of him. So
Sure.
I will say that with medicine, I knew about psychopharmacology just because it was part of my education being a therapist. So the meds didn't scare me. I knew exactly what I needed when they told me I had ADHD. The psychiatrist that I was seeing, he said, "Do you want to be on a stimulant like Adderall?" I said, "No, I don't want a stimulant like Adderall because of my generalized anxiety disorder. It'll probably give me more
Mhm.
somatic symptoms." And what I mean by somatic symptoms, Melly, and for anyone out in the audience, because I got my clinical hat on, so I instantly started
Mhm.
talking in a clinical way. Um, it just means that if I were to take Adderall, it'll probably make me more anxious. So I asked him for something called Stratera, which is a non-stimulant. And that worked fine with me because I didn't want to feel any heart palpitations, any of some of the effects that would probably speed up my anxiety symptoms. So the
Mhm.
Stratera, I've been on it for 2 years. It works perfectly. I knew exactly when I talked to my psychiatrist what I wanted to be on. And when I told him I was a therapist and I worked in a hospital as a psychotherapist for many years, he knew I would probably have a good idea of the type of medication I need to be on.
That's great. So, what will you change in your life if you were diagnosed earlier?
At this point, Melly, I would say nothing. Um, I look at my life now, the good and the bad of it. It led me to where I am now. If I were to change any of those pieces, I'm sure things currently in my life would change. There were points in my journey that I would kind of go down the what if train, what if this and what if that. And no, I wouldn't change a thing now. The good and the bad that came in my life from mental health struggles and my diagnosis, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I think with me not being diagnosed for years makes me more relatable also to understand what it is for people that are afraid of getting diagnosed, that are recently diagnosed, that, everyone has to get to their journey in their own way. So for me, I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't. I think my journey of being diagnosed, of being a therapist, of having the stigma to deal with, of taking medication, of dealing with my diagnosis, of knowing that I have it, um,
Mhm.
makes me more relatable and impactful that way. So I wouldn't change anything.
What will you say to a patient that you want to give medication to and is a little bit scared of being on medication? Because people are sometimes scared. I don't want to take medication. You know what I mean. So what will you say to that person to help them make a great decision for themselves?
I would say education and transparency from the provider is the best policy. Depending on the cultural background of the client, depending on what they heard about medication, they may have preconceived notions that are impacted by stigma. I see this a lot in the African
Mm-hmm.
American community, specifically because of our history with medication with the medical community.
Mm-hmm.
Minority groups, especially, have a lot of stigma when it comes to mental health. So that's another barrier to care. So I think providers need to be very cognizant about how they educate the population regarding the side effects, regarding the pros and cons of taking medication. For ADHD, I will say that it is a neurological brain disorder. You cannot change the chemistry of your brain. The medicine is meant to help you, not hurt you. You have a couple of different options for medication. You get a non-stimulant version. You also have a stimulant version. Most people know about Ritalin. There's Adderall
Mm-hmm.
that most
I
don't
was on
take, and
that.
then there's also I'm on a non-stimulant called Strattera. It works beautifully for me. So I think the most important thing is if you do have some preconceived notions about medication,
Mm-hmm.
honestly talk to your provider about them. Voice your opinion. This is your health, your body. You want to make sure that you're making an adequate decision for yourself. But just know that you cannot change the brain chemistry. It's best to be medicated than to go through life. Not being able to live up to your best potential because of the diagnosis. And I'm not saying, it's for everybody, but the best combined effective treatment that I've seen is behavioral interventions combined with medication works best. So not just taking the medicine and thinking that the medicine is going to be
Mm-hmm.
this a magical thing that's going to help everything better. It needs to be combined with self-care. It needs to be combined with meditation or other effective strategies that can help you maintain the lifestyle that you want. So I hope that kind of helps.
Yeah, I think that was missing in my childhood. The other part of treating ADHD, they put me on meds, and it was mostly what it is. It was nothing else. They expect me to be okay with inside me to be okay with myself and everything. But I was not the case. I was bullied most of my life when I was at school. I hated school because of that. I cried almost every night when I was at school. So for me, it was a bad experience. It was the worst experience in my life. And that's maybe why I decided to create my show. It was to educate people, parents, and maybe they can show this to their teenager, that doesn't know about ADHD. So you talk about alternative care. So talk to me a little bit more about those alternative care that you can take with medication and without it. Just tell me a little bit more about that. It's interesting.
So, when I was diagnosed with the ADHD 2 years ago, officially, I had a combined holistic approach for my students. I provided holistic approaches such as meditation, such as working on. Sorry, my son is like,
It's
um,
okay.
he's like crawling on the table. Well, I'm sorry, Jaden. Oh, you're all right, honey. I'm almost done. Um, he he just woke up, so he's a little grumpy. But nonetheless, what it was I did mindfulness meditation for myself. Making sure I was sleeping properly, make sure I was drinking enough water. But I also was introduced to holistic vegan supplements to help increase my focus, my energy level, my to deal with the restlessness I felt, my anxiety. It's called Amari. So they're holistic supplements that actually help increase very naturally your brain capacity, and it doesn't affect anybody. Actually can take them.
Hmm.
It's not just for people that have ADHD, but if you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle with energy, if you struggle with focus, It actually helped me get off of coffee. I was a big coffee drinker, and as you
Me
know,
too.
that's the most um, natural. And they actually say caffeine is actually good for ADHD. It helps you focus. I haven't drunk coffee, Millie, in 2 years. I haven't drunk in 2 years. I'm actually on a supplement that has a lot of natural properties for brain development and health that actually helps me focus better. I don't drink it at all. Now, I'm someone who's been drinking since I was 18 years old. Like, I like it freshly crushed and everything. I have a French press and everything. Like, it was that bad. But I end up having really bad acid reflux. So I ended
Mhm.
up being on these holistic supplements for my mood and my energy and my focus. And for the last 2 years, I haven't drunk any coffee, and which is why my face is so shiny and bright. But so yeah.
So if you want to so if you had a last word to say to the people that are watching me or is going to watch us, because it's going to also be on my podcast, so what will you say to them to end the show?
Um, I would say get the help that you need. The support is out there. There are many ADHD um, groups, and Melly's a very good support to have. I wish I had that type of support when, that type of advocacy when I had it. Um, get diagnosed early. That's something I do wish, I will say that I wish that would have been done earlier on in my life, because I probably would have saved myself a lot of academic grief, even though I
Hmm.
was a high achiever in both my bachelor's and my master's program. Um, the things that people didn't know, as I spent hours upon hours studying, hours upon writing research papers, paraphrasing things to make sure I understood them. It takes up a lot of time and energy to do that and sustain
Hmm.
that type of attention. And I did it unmedicated. The big difference when I was medicated is I can think faster. I'm more focused. And I'm like, man, I wish I had those thoughts, Melly. I wish this would have happened 20 years ago. But again, things happen for a reason. So out of this conversation, I hope people just got a kind of an inside view, hearing it from someone that is a therapist, someone that has a mental health background, but someone that struggled with stigma of mental health in general.
Yes, and
So
Rachel want you. Yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I actually do got to get ready to go because he is whining.
Okay,
So
that's totally okay. So, can you, when you have time, put the supplement in the comment
oh,
of the video so people can get them,
sure,
because they
yeah,
are
I can.
pretty interested in adding those supplements, and I am too, actually.
Sure. So I'm actually Amari Global, which is the mental health wellness company that does them. Um, they actually can drop the link so people can see the site. They can check it out. I'm a distributor for them, just because I have all of their products and I've been having them for the last 2 years.
Mhm.
So if they want a discount on them, if they are like, hey, I want to try them, let they can reach out to me and let me know, and I'll be more than willing to get them a discount on the supplements, because on the site they're a little bit more pricey, but if you get them through a distributor or someone that's connected to them, you get a heavy discount.
That's
So
amazing. Thank you so much for being here today,
you're welcome.
and I hope that you are going to come back, because I really loved your insight and your input and your story, like other people say right now. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. I'm so glad that you are here, even if it's for a shorter time, or earlier time. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much again, and I will
You're
see you soon
welcome, Melly.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll drop
Bye.
the Melly if you want. Bye, Melly. I'll drop the link for you in your inbox.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. See you soon, and see you next Friday, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.